The rumor mill strikes again, and this time it's all about Resident Evil. Now, if rumors are to be believed, and I take them with a grain of salt coming from leaker Dust Golem, but according to him and his sources, we have a few, at least a timeline of the next 3 Resident Evil games actively being worked on. Code Veronica remake, a Resident Evil 0 remake, and a Resident Evil 10, obviously. And with even a possibility of a Resident Evil 1 remake made in the same way that, say, like Resident Evil 2 remake was. First up, coming in 2027, would be the long-awaited Code Veronica remake. Now, I just replayed this very recently, and while it does get a pretty bad rap, it's not that bad. Sure, Steve may be like the worst character in the series, and his voice acting certainly doesn't help.
Wait, don't shoot!
Who are you?
Huh? You're not a zombie. Well, great. Wait right there. I'm coming over. Sorry about that little misunderstanding, but I thought you were another one of those
Shut up.
But barring some, egregious backtracking, especially in the second half, in, Antarctica, it's not that bad in the Antarctica. It's not that bad, all things considered. Claire and Chris shine here, and we finally get, super cool Neo Matrix Wesker that we see more of by Resident Evil 5. This remake doesn't need to fix much, to be honest. The prison island and Antarctica are pretty interesting locations. They just suffer some pacing problems. Remaking it in the style of, the RE2 remake would be perfect. You could even argue maybe even doing with what they did with Requiem, with Claire segments being more stealth and managing your resources. And when Chris goes through the same locations during the second half, he can have way more ammo, and it would create a new cathartic experience again that game provided. Next up would be Resident Evil 0 remake. Now, this is a game that I personally feel is a bit overhated. It just barely didn't make my personal top 10 Resident Evil games for just a few glaring issues. The 2 biggest problems are no item boxes and potentially soft locking yourself or unintentionally making the game harder for yourself or creating needless backtracking if you didn't know certain key items you might need. Going into this game completely blind is like playing Russian roulette. It's going to be completely RNG on how well you will like or hate this game. One key item takes up 2 slots, a grappling hook, and you never know when you might need it, and this game features 2 player characters you can freely switch between with the press of a button. There's a few parts where you have to split up and who you choose to accomplish certain tasks, like sending Rebecca or Billy up in the lab could be 2 completely different experiences, where one is torture and one is like a 15-minute, cakewalk. The other is the lack of an item box. The trade-off that this game made is you have 2 characters, each with 6 slots, and you could freely drop off any item anywhere, and the map will show you exactly what room and what items you dropped where. This is extremely useful and something I personally feel should be in every single game with this old school formula. You never want to be like, oh man, I completely forgot I had these 2 things, or I can combine this herb with this herb by picking them up at the same time. It just feels wrong. The problem is the lack of boxes. So the need to potentially backtrack minutes at a time increases if you don't know what to do or where to drop certain items at. Besides that, Billy and Rebecca work off each other well, and I personally hate that we never really see any of them again, barring a smidge of Rebecca in Resident Evil 1 with Chris's campaign. The game should, again, borrow heavily from the Resident Evil 2 remake formula and lean into the character switching more, as only a few puzzles really required any forward thinking of how to use each character. The game should also lean into what the original did to separate the characters in terms of gameplay. Rebecca is weaker, but she can throw Molotovs better and can mix healing herbs together, whereas Billy is stronger and can take more hits and do more damage, and can, move heavier objects like stronger boxes or like a bookshelf or whatever that Rebecca can't. He can also play the piano for that Rebecca can't, as we see her learning in Resident Evil 1. So it's a nice callback. The training facility, or, the mansion, I kind of actually like a bit more than the Resident Evil 1 mansion, personally. And the beginning with the train, oh man, I can only imagine how cool it could potentially be in a remake. This is the game I'd say I'm most looking forward to seeing a remake of, because the potential is just, it's right there. And I'm hoping more people can even give the original a chance if they go into it, not completely blind and looking up like certain things of where to leave something or soft locking issues. And I think you'd have a much better time with the game. For the Resident Evil 1 remake, let's be honest, all this really needs in terms of gameplay is just a perspective switch. You could probably like mod it somehow, and to like what Resident Evil 2 remake did. I keep using that as the blueprint because, well, it's just that good. In terms of story and characters, that for sure can be expanded, and maybe even finally have Rebecca have some more agency, considering what she just went through in the past, the last 24 hours of the game in Zero. Because this is like her second damn mansion in 24 hours. This seems like the easiest to improve upon, as the overall game itself is like perfect the way it is, with its puzzles and backtracking and so on. So I'm just gonna move on from this because there's not much to really improve here. Now, Resident Evil 10 is where it's literally just all speculation. Will it be like Requiem with the dual protagonist and gameplay style? I kind of feel like that's the winning formula right now, where both types of Resident Evil fans can be happy. Now, in terms of protagonists, I'd be remiss to not bring up some characters that definitely need the spotlight, with Claire getting the Code Veronica remake treatment, and the 1 remake being even further out than 10. I'd say it's Jill's time to shine here. Maybe even bring Carlos back somehow for like a really great reunion, because I really enjoyed the chemistry they shared in, the 3 remake. Some of the only improvements to that game over the original was Carlos and his interactions with Jill. Considering we just got 9 though, this game is a long way out, so it's best to not speculate too much at this point and focus on the potential remakes that are coming sooner, and like Requiem's upcoming DLCs that are in the works. Like the one in May that's like an arcadey type thing, it's probably going to be Mercenaries or something like that. And then later on they said there's like story DLC coming, so that could be about like Chris's wolves, like his pack or whatever. Or you could even have like Ada show up, or rumored it might be Jill, who knows, but that's a little bit further down the line as well. So what do you guys think about the potential upcoming remakes? Are you excited for them if they end up being real? And what about a potential like Resident Evil 5 remake? I thought that was definitely going to be the next, with how like 4 remake and Separate Ways alluded to it with Wesker, but maybe showing him in a 1 remake and a Code Veronica remake is smarter to build up to like that epic conclusion with him and Chris. But time will tell, and we'll see if we'll get to that eventually. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, liking, subscribing, sharing, all that good stuff. If only even a few of you make it this far, it means the world to me. So thank you very much, and as always, talk to you next time, my friends.